They say power reveals itself in small moments, not grand speeches. This story begins with one such moment, quiet, sharp, and humiliating enough to be remembered forever. It is the story of a woman who learned very early that silence can be a weapon, that patience can be dangerous, and that the people who smile the most often assume no one is watching. This is not a story about love or forgiveness. It is a story about timing, perception, and what happens when the wrong person is underestimated for too long. My name is Hannah. I married into the Kara family 3 years ago, a name that opened doors, silenced rooms, and bent people into polite agreement. From the outside, my life looked enviable. Wealth, influence, invitations to events most people only read about. Inside, it was something else entirely. I was tolerated, not accepted. Present, but never important. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Grand Belmont Hall, a place built to impress and intimidate in equal measure. Crystal chandeliers, white marble floors, tables dressed in linen so fine it felt unreal beneath my fingers. Every seat had been planned weeks in advance. Every guest chosen carefully. Every detail controlled by Bianca Kara. Bianca was my sister-in-law, perfect hair, perfect posture, perfect cruelty. She moved through rooms like she owned them because she did. This wedding was hers long before it belonged to the groom. It was not just a marriage. It was a merger, a performance, a statement. When I arrived, I knew something was wrong before anyone spoke. The head table was full. Laughter floated easily from it. I scanned the place cards once, then again. My name wasn't there. Bianca noticed me standing. Of course she did. Her smile curved slowly, deliberately, like she'd been waiting for this moment all evening. "Oh," she said lightly, rising just enough for others to see. "Hannah, darling, we only reserved seats for immediate family and important guests." The word important hung in the air longer than it should have. A few people laughed, not loudly, just enough. My husband Victor stood beside me, confused but passive, already trained not to challenge her. "Don't make a scene," he murmured, not meeting my eyes. So I didn't. I smiled, I excused myself. I walked away with my dignity intact and my hands steady, even though something cold had settled deep in my chest. In the restroom mirror, I looked at myself for a long moment. Calm, composed, invisible, Bianca thought this was the end of the moment. She was wrong. Across the ballroom, champagne glasses clinked. Bianca was preparing a toast. I returned quietly to the edge of the room, unnoticed, perfectly placed to watch. She raised her glass, confident, glowing, certain she was untouchable. And that was when I knew. This wasn't the night her world would fall apart. This was the night the timer started. The toast ended to polite applause, but the mood had shifted. Not enough for anyone to name it. Enough for someone like me to feel it settle into the room like fog. I didn't go back to the tables. I stayed near the wall, watching. Bianca thrived in moments like this. She moved from group to group, laughing softly, touching arms, reminding people who she was and why they needed her. Influence wasn't announced, it was applied. Victor disappeared into a circle of men discussing investments and travel routes. He never noticed when I slipped away. That was normal. In this family, I had learned how to vanish without anyone questioning it. Near the bar, two men spoke in low voices. I didn't recognize one of them, but the other was impossible to miss. Damien Lambert. Tall, bald, calm. The kind of man people stepped aside for without realizing they were doing it. Bianca approached him with a glass already raised. "I do hope you're enjoying yourself," she said brightly. "We spared no expense." Damien smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sure." She leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough to sound intimate. "Though I must admit, these lights are very forgiving, almost make you look distinguished." A pause, too long. Someone laughed nervously. Bianca continued, careless now. "What was it the magazine called you last month? The bald eagle of business?" A ripple of uneasy sound moved through the crowd. This wasn't playful, it was sharp. Damien's jaw tightened. I believe they focused more on our recent acquisition. "Oh yes," Bianca said smoothly. "The one everyone says you circled like a vulture." Silence. This time it was complete. I watched faces change. Calculations replacing smiles. Damien didn't raise his voice. He didn't step back, he simply looked at her. "Careful with metaphors," he said quietly. "Some birds remember where they're insulted." Bianca laughed it off, lifting her glass higher. "No offense intended." Nathaniel Cara appeared seconds later, gripping her arm too tightly for affection. Apologies were exchanged. Words smoothed over edges. Music resumed. But it was done. I saw it in Damien's eyes when they briefly met mine across the room. Cold, focused, a look that didn't forgive or forget, a look that measured distance and consequence. Later, outside on the terrace, someone stood beside me. "She shouldn't have done that," a woman said softly. I turned. Zoe Lambert, Damien's daughter. She didn't look angry, she looked thoughtful. "She never knows when to stop," I replied. Zoe nodded. "My father doesn't forget." She hesitated, then added, "He's been looking for a reason to walk away from your family's business. Tonight might have given him one." The words slid into place quietly. No drama, no promise. Just information. Inside, Bianca laughed again, louder than before. She believed she had won something. I watched the city lights below and understood the truth. She had just made a mistake. And no one was rushing to stop what came next. The next few weeks passed without incident, which only made everything more dangerous. On the surface, nothing had changed. Bianca continued planning her wedding with military precision. Vendor meetings, press hints, carefully leaked photos. She behaved as if the rehearsal dinner had gone exactly as she intended. To her, it had. She believed humiliation only worked in one direction. I watched quietly. Victor came home later than usual most nights, exhausted from meetings he barely understood. His father, Nathaniel, had begun speaking in half sentences, always stepping away to take calls. He stopped mentioning timelines, stopped bragging. That silence mattered. At a private family brunch, Bianca dominated the conversation as always. "The merger announcement will change everything," she said, stirring her coffee. "Once it's public, no one will question us again." No one responded. She noticed. Her smile tightened for half a second before returning. I caught Victor watching her, not with admiration but concern. That was new. A few days later, an envelope arrived at our apartment. Thick paper, formal print, engagement announcement. Bianca Elizabeth Cara and Alexander Hartley. The date was set, the venue extravagant, the guest list selective. Victor turned it over in his hands. "This is huge," he said, "the press coverage alone." "It's rushed," I said. He frowned. "What?" "The timing," I replied. "It's rushed." He hesitated, then shrugged. "Bianca doesn't rush, she controls." That night, my phone rang after midnight. "Zoe." "I shouldn't be calling," she said, not bothering with an apology, "but I need you to know something." I sat up. "What?" "My father is done," she said. "He's been planning an exit for months, quietly." I said nothing. The only reason he waited was respect, history, family pride. She paused. That ended. "When?" I asked. "Soon," she said, "very soon." I stared into the dark room, heart steady, mind already moving. "What about the Hartley deal?" I asked. Zoe laughed once, sharp. "It only exists because of my father's backing. Without it, everything collapses." After the call, I didn't sleep. Instead, I reviewed every moment I dismissed over the past 3 years. Every whisper, every comment, every time Bianca had treated power like a toy that could never be taken away. She believed herself untouchable because no one had ever touched her. That illusion was about to end. The next morning, Bianca sent a family message. "Rehearsal dinner confirmed for Friday. Attendance is mandatory." I stared at the screen and smiled. She thought this was a celebration. She had no idea it was a countdown. The days leading up to the rehearsal dinner moved faster than they should have. Too many calls, too many meetings, too much silence where confidence should have been. Nathaniel stopped eating breakfast with the family. He left early, returned late, and avoided Bianca's questions with clipped answers. She noticed, but she didn't push. Bianca never questioned authority unless she believed she could overpower it. Victor sensed it too. One night while loosening his tie, he said quietly, "Dad's stressed, more than usual." "About the merger?" I asked. He hesitated. He says it's fine, but he's lying. That was the first crack Victor had ever admitted out loud. The following afternoon, I attended a small charity planning meeting Bianca had insisted I join. She spoke for most of it, directing, correcting, dismissing. Halfway through, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it once, then flipped it face down. Her hand shook. It was subtle, anyone else would have missed it, I didn't. After the meeting, I lingered behind. One of the donors, an older man with tired eyes, muttered to his assistant near the door. He didn't know I was close enough to hear. "Tell legal to stall," he whispered. "If Lambert pulls tonight, we're exposed." Lambert. The word landed exactly where it needed to. That evening, Zoe texted me a single sentence. "It's happening sooner than planned." I didn't reply. I didn't need details. I understood timing. I understood pressure. And most of all, I understood Bianca's greatest weakness. She believed control meant visibility. That night, I made one phone call. Damien answered on the second ring. "I know what night the rehearsal dinner is," he said before I could speak. "I know," I replied. A pause, heavy, measured. "You're asking me to move fast," he said. "I'm asking you to move precisely," I said. Silence again. "When the announcement hits," I continued, "she'll be standing in front of everyone she needs to impress." Another pause. Damien exhaled slowly. "You understand what this will do?" "Yes." "And you're comfortable with it?" "I'm ready for it." He didn't ask why. He didn't need to. "Then it will be done," he said, "tomorrow evening." When the call ended, my hands were steady. The rehearsal dinner was no longer an event. It was a stage. And Bianca had already stepped into the spotlight, completely unaware that the floor beneath her was about to disappear. The rehearsal dinner began exactly on time. Bianca would never allow anything less. She had chosen the restaurant herself. Private, expensive, carefully hidden from public view but close enough to the city's power center to feel relevant. The guest list was smaller than the weddings would be, but more dangerous. Investors, board members, people who could destroy a reputation with a phone call. I arrived with Victor and took the seat assigned to me, far from the head table, far from conversation. Perfect. Bianca stood at the center of attention, silver dress, diamond flashing whenever she moved. She looked calm, confident, untouchable. Alexander sat beside her, distracted, scrolling through his phone between forced smiles. Nathaniel arrived late. That alone was strange. He took his seat without greeting anyone, jaw tight, eyes already scanning the room. Bianca leaned toward him, whispering something sharp. He didn't answer. Dinner was served, conversations overlapped, laughter rose and fell. I checked the time. 7:58. Nathaniel stood. The room quieted immediately. He lifted his glass, practiced authority settling over him. "Tonight," he began, "we celebrate the future. Not just of two families, but..." Phones vibrated. One, then another, then several. Nathaniel paused, irritation flickering across his face. He glanced down at his phone. His expression changed instantly. The color drained from his skin. Across the table, Alexander's father stiffened, staring at his screen. His hand trembled. "What is it?" Bianca whispered sharply. Nathaniel silenced his phone and tried to continue. "As I was saying..." A loud ringtone cut through the room. This time, it was Nathaniel's. He answered without leaving the table. "No," he said immediately, "that's not possible." Silence spread like oil. "You can't do this tonight," he hissed. "The announcement is scheduled." He stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. "What do you mean effective immediately?" Every conversation stopped. Alexander's father rose halfway from his seat, face pale. "Nathaniel," he said urgently, "check the markets." Bianca stood now too. "Someone explain what's happening." Nathaniel turned slowly, phone still pressed to his ear. His voice cracked. "Lambert has withdrawn." The room erupted. People reached for phones, whispers became gasps, names were spoken too loudly. Stocks crashing. 40% down. The merger. It's dead. Bianca grabbed Victor's arm. "Fix this," she demanded. "Call someone, anyone." Victor stared at his phone, helpless. Alexander stepped away, already on a call, his back to her. Nathaniel slammed his phone onto the table. He planned this, he snapped. He waited. I remained seated. Across the chaos, Bianca's eyes found mine. For a brief moment, something flickered there. Not certainty, not control. Fear. She opened her mouth to speak. But there was nothing left to say. The collapse had begun, and it was far too late to stop it. The room never recovered. What followed wasn't panic at first. It was denial. Quiet, dangerous denial. People reread messages, refreshed screens, whispered into phones as if the numbers might correct themselves if asked politely. They didn't. Alexander's father collapsed into his chair, breathing shallow, fingers locked around his phone like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Nathaniel paced 2 steps, stopped, then paced again. His authority was gone. Everyone could see it. This is temporary, Bianca said too loudly. This is a misunderstanding. No one answered her. A man near the window spoke without looking at her. Lambert filed the withdrawal paperwork an hour ago. Another voice followed. Press already has it. Bianca turned to her father. Do something. Nathaniel stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. There is nothing to do. That was when the room shifted again. People began leaving. Not dramatically, not all at once. One excuse at a time. A phone call. A sudden obligation. A quiet goodbye that wasn't meant for the family, but for the future they no longer wanted to be associated with. Alexander returned briefly, eyes hard. My family is leaving. Bianca grabbed his sleeve. You can't. He removed her hand. I don't have a choice. You're choosing, she snapped. He didn't answer, he didn't look back. The door closed behind the Hartleys. Bianca stood frozen. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Victor moved toward her. Bianca. She turned on him. This is your fault, she said. You should have known. He recoiled slightly. Known what? That they were planning this, that they were lying. Her voice broke, sharp and ugly. You never know anything. She scanned the room, desperate now. Investors avoided her eyes. Former allies pretended to be busy. Her world was shrinking by the second. Nathaniel finally stopped pacing. We're leaving, he said flatly. No, Bianca said. We stay, we fix this. He looked at her with something like exhaustion. There is nothing left to fix. As they walked out, Bianca lagged behind. She slowed near my table. You, she said quietly, you look very calm. I met her gaze. Should I be panicking? Her lips pressed together. Suspicion crossed her face, sharp and sudden. You knew. I didn't answer. She waited, then she laughed once, brittle. Of course you did. She turned away before I could speak. By midnight, the story was everywhere. Headlines, numbers, speculation. The Kara name, once untouchable, now dragged through every screen in the city. At home, Victor sat in silence, staring at nothing. We're ruined, he said finally. I sat beside him. No, I said softly, your family is. He looked at me then, really looked at me. And you. I didn't smile. I'm exactly where I planned to be. The fallout didn't wait for morning. By sunrise, Victor's phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Lawyers, board members, people who had ignored him for years suddenly needed reassurance he couldn't give. He answered none of them. Bianca locked herself in her room. Nathaniel stayed in his study, door closed, voice raised every few minutes as he argued with someone who could no longer save him. The word emergency lost meaning through repetition. By noon, the numbers were undeniable. Kara Industries had lost nearly half its value overnight. Credit lines were frozen. Accounts flagged. The merger announcement scheduled for Monday was officially withdrawn before lunch. Victor finally spoke. Dad leveraged everything. I said nothing. The wedding, he continued, voice hollow. The expansion, the properties, all of it was tied to the merger. That was the moment panic replaced shock. Bianca came downstairs in the afternoon, eyes sharp, posture rigid. She had changed clothes, reapplied makeup, reset herself the only way she knew how. We can still control the narrative, she said. People panic, we don't. Nathaniel looked at her like she was speaking another language. The narrative doesn't matter when the money's gone. She ignored him and turned to Victor. You still have contacts, call them. Victor shook his head, they're not answering. Her composure cracked, then call harder. No one moved. That evening, the first formal notice arrived. Margin calls. Immediate payment required. Nathaniel sank into a chair. This isn't possible, Bianca said again. We have assets. You have debt, Nathaniel replied. She turned toward me suddenly. You're quiet. I met her gaze. There's nothing to add. Her eyes narrowed. You enjoy this. I understand it, I said. That was worse. Later that night, Zoe texted. It's complete, he won't reverse it. I didn't respond. I didn't need confirmation anymore. The next morning, the wedding planner canceled. Then the venue. Then the press. By afternoon, Bianca's name was trending for reasons she couldn't control. She finally broke. In the kitchen, alone with me, she said, You think this makes you better? I shook my head, no. Then why? She demanded. I met her stare evenly. Because you thought you could humiliate people forever without consequences. Her face twisted, You're nobody. I leaned closer, That's why you never saw me coming. She stepped back, breathing fast. By nightfall, the Kara empire wasn't collapsing anymore. It had collapsed. And Bianca, for the first time in her life, had nowhere left to stand. The next week stripped everything down to truth. Lawyers moved in and out of the house like undertakers. Files replaced furniture. Conversations happened in whispers, then not at all. Every call Nathaniel answered ended the same way, short, clipped, defeated. Bianca refused to leave her room. Victor tried to hold things together, but there was nothing left to manage. Decisions were no longer strategic. They were reactive. Sell this, freeze that, delay everything else. By midweek, the board forced Nathaniel to step down. The announcement was brief, cold, final. Bianca learned about it from her phone. She came downstairs slowly, holding the screen like evidence of a crime. They can't do this, she said. He built this company. No, Nathaniel replied quietly. He inherited it. That silenced her. The house felt smaller after that, not physically, emotionally. Power had filled these walls for decades. Without it, everything echoed. Creditors came next. The apartment in Manhattan was listed first, then the Hamptons house, then the vineyard. Bianca protested each one, her voice rising with every document she signed. My jewelry is personal, she snapped at the lawyer. Those aren't company assets. The lawyer didn't look up. They were purchased through corporate accounts. Her hand trembled as she signed. I watched without comment. That night, Victor stood beside me in the hallway. Did you plan all of this? He asked. I didn't answer immediately. I didn't plan their greed, I said. I didn't plan their arrogance. I planned timing. He nodded slowly. That's worse. I know. He didn't walk away. 2 days later, Bianca packed. No announcement, no goodbye, just suitcases, a quiet exit through the back. Before she left, she stopped in front of me. You think you won, she said. I didn't compete, I replied. Her laugh was hollow. You took everything. I met her eyes. You gave it away. She left without another word. The press moved on quickly. There was always another collapse, another scandal. The Kara name faded from headlines faster than anyone expected. But consequences don't disappear when attention does. Victor and I moved out within the month. A smaller place, no staff, no appearances to maintain. For the first time, nothing was borrowed power. One evening, a package arrived, no return address. Inside was a single photograph. The rehearsal dinner. Bianca mid-toast. The moment before everything ended. I stared at it for a long time. Not with satisfaction. With understanding. Because the story was never about revenge. It was about exposure. And once exposed, nothing survives the same way again. Time didn't heal anything. It revealed what was left. Weeks passed, the noise faded, but the damage settled deeper. Victor stopped receiving calls entirely, not because people were angry. Because they were done, silence was the final verdict. Nathaniel moved out of the house quietly. No announcement, no farewell dinner, just boxes and a car waiting in the driveway. Power had abandoned him, and without it, he no longer knew how to exist in that space. Bianca vanished from the city. Rumors filled the gap. Some said she was staying with distant relatives. Others claimed she had fled overseas. None of it mattered. What mattered was that her name no longer opened doors. It closed them. One afternoon, Victor asked a question he'd been circling for weeks. "If you hadn't made that call," he said, "would this still have happened?" "Yes," I replied, "just slower." He studied me, "And if you hadn't been humiliated?" I met his eyes, "Then I wouldn't have cared when it did." That truth sat between us, heavy but clean. A few days later, Zoe asked me to meet her. She didn't waste time. "You changed the direction," she said. "My father was ready to walk away, but you chose the moment that would hurt most." "I chose the moment they couldn't spin," I replied. She nodded. "That's why it worked." She slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents, new ventures, opportunities, names that mattered again. "You don't owe us anything," she added, "but you've proven you understand how power really moves." I closed the folder. "I'm not interested in replacing them." Zoe smiled. "Good, that's why you'll last." That night, Victor and I sat in silence, the city outside unfamiliar and quiet. "I used to think survival meant holding on," he said. "Now I think it means knowing when to let go." I reached for his hand. "Your family didn't fall because someone pushed them. They fell because no one was holding them anymore," he finished. Across the city, Bianca was learning the same lesson alone. And somewhere between her disappearance and our quiet reset, the balance finally settled. But the story wasn't finished yet. Because consequences don't end when people walk away. They wait. And they always collect what's still owed. The call came at night. Unknown number, no introduction. "You should know," the voice said, low and precise. "This isn't over." I didn't ask who it was, I already knew. "Bianca," I replied. A pause, sharp breath. "You think disappearing means losing," she said. "It doesn't, it means regrouping." "Then regroup," I said. "You always do." Her laugh was thin. "You're calm because you think you're untouchable now." "I'm calm because I don't need anything from you," I replied. Silence stretched, then she spoke again, slower. "You ruined me." "You ruined yourself," I said. "I just didn't stop it." The line went dead. Victor heard my side of the conversation. He didn't ask questions. He already understood something had shifted. "She's not finished," he said. "No," I agreed. "She's desperate." That made her dangerous. 2 days later, the first article appeared, anonymous source. Carefully worded, it didn't accuse me directly. It implied insider knowledge, suspicious timing, whispers of manipulation. Zoe called immediately. "She's trying to redirect blame." "I expected that," I said. "She's fishing," Zoe added, "for leverage, for fear." "She won't find it," I replied. But Bianca wasn't reckless. She was strategic when cornered. By the end of the week, subpoenas followed. Not for me, for everyone. Routine, they said, standard review. Nathaniel was questioned first. Then Victor. Then Damien. Each conversation was controlled, clean, documented. Nothing stuck. Bianca had underestimated one thing. Truth leaves a paper trail. Lies need constant rewriting. When her attempt collapsed, she tried again. A message arrived this time. No threats, just coordinates. "We need to talk." Victor shook his head. "Don't go." "I need to," I said. The place was neutral, public, safe. Bianca looked different, thinner, tired, controlled but barely. "You always wanted power," she said immediately. "No," I replied. "You wanted control, I wanted freedom." She stared at me. "You took my life." I leaned forward. "You built your life on other people's silence." Her eyes flickered. "So this is it, you walk away clean." "Yes." She smiled slowly. "Enjoy it while it lasts." I stood. "I already am." As I left, I understood something clearly for the first time. Bianca wasn't my enemy anymore. She was a reminder of how close power and collapse always are, and how quickly the roles can reverse when someone finally decides to stop being quiet. Bianca didn't attack again. That was how I knew she had nothing left. People like her always strike when they believe they still have leverage. Silence meant exhaustion. Silence meant isolation. Silence meant reality had finally reached her. The investigation closed quietly. No charges, no scandal, just a thin official statement buried beneath louder news cycles. Bianca's last attempt to rewrite the story disappeared with it. Victor changed after that. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but something hardened into clarity. He stopped apologizing for his family, stopped explaining their past, stopped carrying shame that wasn't his. "I don't miss it," he admitted one night. "The noise, the pretending." "Neither do I," said. We began over. Not rebuilding, replacing. A smaller apartment, fewer calls, real conversations, people who didn't measure worth in headlines or stock prices. Then Damien reached out. He didn't congratulate me, he didn't thank me. He offered something else. An opportunity. "I'm restructuring," he said. "Cutting ties with legacy partners. I need people who understand pressure without being consumed by it." "I'm not interested in revenge consulting," I replied. A pause, then a rare smile in his voice. "Good, I was hoping you'd say that." We met once, brief, focused, no promises. Just alignment. A week later, Zoe sent a message. "She's leaving the country." No explanation, no forwarding address. Bianca was done running out of rooms to dominate. Victor looked relieved when I told him, "I don't want to keep looking over my shoulder." "You won't," I said. Because the truth was simple. Bianca had lost the only thing she'd ever relied on. Attention. Without it, she faded. And without her shadow looming over every room, the silence finally felt earned. Not peaceful. Earned. But some stories don't end with closure. They end with distance. And distance, I had learned, is sometimes the most final victory of all. Distance didn't mean safety, it meant patience. 3 months passed, long enough for people to assume the story was finished. Long enough for Bianca to believe time had softened the damage. That was when her name surfaced again. Not in headlines, in filings. A quiet legal move, an attempt to reclaim assets frozen during the collapse, jewelry, offshore accounts. Holdings she claimed were never tied to the company. Zoe called me the moment she saw it. "She's trying to crawl back in." "She won't get far," I said. "No," Zoe replied, "but she's forcing people to look again." That was Bianca's last skill, dragging attention back to herself, even if it burned. Victor was named in the filings as a witness, not a target, a tool. That angered me. "She's trying to pull you into it," he said, tired more than afraid. "She's trying to remind you she exists," I replied. The hearing was brief, cold, procedural. Bianca appeared via video, her face carefully composed, her voice controlled. She spoke about injustice, about betrayal, about being erased. No one interrupted her. When it was over, the judge denied her request without comment. That was worse than losing. No reaction meant no power. Afterward, Bianca sent one final message. "You think silence means I'm finished?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because I knew what she didn't. Silence wasn't the end. It was the confirmation. And once confirmed, nothing could bring her back to where she'd been. That night, Victor said something quietly that surprised me. "I don't hate her anymore." "Neither do I," said. Hate required proximity. She no longer had that. The past had released us. Not because it forgave, but because it no longer mattered. The silence held for months. That was the most unsettling part. No messages, no filings, no rumors. Bianca disappeared completely, as if she had never existed outside old photographs and archived articles. People stopped mentioning her name. Even Nathaniel avoided it, as though speaking it might summon something unfinished. Victor and I built routines that didn't revolve around damage control. Mornings were quiet. Decisions were ours. The absence of pressure felt unfamiliar, almost suspicious. That was when Damien called again. Not with an offer, with a warning. "Something moved overseas," he said. "Shell companies. Traces lead back to Hartley-connected accounts." I said nothing. She's trying to rebuild leverage, he continued. Not influence, proof. What kind of proof? I asked. The kind that only matters if someone's afraid of it. I understood immediately. Bianca wasn't trying to regain power. She was trying to regain relevance, to force herself back into the narrative by manufacturing threat. She won't find anything, I said. No, Damien agreed, but she'll convince herself she has. That was the danger. Days later, an email arrived. No sender name, no greeting. I know what you did. No details, no accusation. Just a test. I deleted it. The next message came a week later. You should have stayed quiet. I forwarded that one to Damien. He replied with a single sentence. She's bluffing. Victor noticed my calm. You're not worried. I've already lived through the worst she could do, I replied. This is noise. But Bianca didn't want to hurt me. She wanted to provoke me. When that failed, she changed tactics. A mutual acquaintance reached out, awkward and hesitant, asking vague questions about timelines and meetings from the past. Someone else asked about calls I'd made years ago. None of it direct, all of it deliberate. She was fishing. I didn't bite. Then abruptly it stopped. No more messages, no more inquiries. Damien confirmed it days later. She's burned through her last resources, whatever she thought she didn't hold. I exhaled slowly. Bianca had chased ghosts until she ran out of ground to stand on. And this time there was no stage, no audience, no dramatic exit. Just disappearance. That was how it truly ended. Not with confrontation. Not with apology. But with irrelevance. And for someone like Bianca, that was the only ending that ever mattered. Irrelevance didn't erase consequences, it finalized them. The final audit report was released quietly on a Friday evening. No press conference, no spectacle, just facts laid out in precise language, improper leverage, misrepresented liquidity, systematic risk concealed behind confidence. The Kara collapse was no longer gossip. It was record. Nathaniel read the report alone. He didn't call Victor afterward. He didn't argue. He didn't deny it. Acceptance came easier once there was nothing left to protect. A week later, he resigned from the last advisory role he still held. No announcement followed. Victor told me over dinner. He said he's done trying to explain himself. That's new, I replied. He's tired, Victor said, and so am I. That night, I received a package forwarded from an old address. Inside was a single item. A key. No note, no name. I recognized it immediately. Bianca's private safe, the one she used to boast about, the one no one was ever allowed to open. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it back in the box and locked it away. Some doors didn't need to be opened to prove they were empty. 2 days later, Damien confirmed what I already suspected. She sold the last of it, he said. Everything she could move, whatever she planned didn't work. Is she gone for good? I asked. As close as people like her ever get, he replied. That was enough. Victor and I signed papers that afternoon. Final separation from all remaining Kara-linked assets, no inheritance, no contingency, no fallback. Clean. As we left the office, Victor stopped. You could have taken more, he said. You had every right. I don't want pieces of something rotten, I replied. He smiled. That's why you won. I didn't correct him. Winning was never the point. Control was. And for the first time, it belonged to no one else. The disappearance became permanent. No sightings, no messages, no attempts to resurface. Bianca had burned every bridge she ever crossed, and when she finally needed one, there was nothing left to stand on. People didn't ask about her anymore, not out of loyalty, out of indifference. That was when the social consequences finished what the collapse had started. An old friend of hers hosted a charity gala. Bianca's name wasn't on the list. Another event followed. Same result. Even distant acquaintances stopped returning messages, not because they feared association, but because association no longer offered value. Victor heard it from someone at a conference. Funny thing, the man said casually, Once the Kara name stopped meaning money, it stopped meaning anything. That truth traveled faster than scandal ever had. Weeks later, Zoe forwarded me a brief update. She tried to get hired, no one would touch her. No commentary, no satisfaction, just fact. Bianca had always believed she was irreplaceable. The kind of person the world rearranged itself around. Now the world moved on without noticing she was gone. That night I thought about the rehearsal dinner. The smirk, the empty chair, the assumption that humiliation could exist without consequence. Power thrives on belief. Once belief is gone, power evaporates. Victor stood by the window, city lights reflected faintly in the glass. Do you think she understands now? I shook my head. Understanding requires reflection, she never learned how. He nodded slowly. Then this is as close as she'll get. The next morning, an email arrived addressed to Victor. Not from Bianca, from a former associate of hers. She's asking about you, about your life, she's trying to reconnect. Victor deleted it without replying. He didn't look conflicted, he looked finished. And that was the final shift. When someone loses access to your life completely, they lose their last illusion of relevance. Bianca had no audience left. No leverage. No echo. Only the quiet reality she had spent her life avoiding. And there was nothing left for her to destroy but memory. Memory is dangerous when it's all someone has left. That was when Bianca made her last move. Not public, not loud, personal. Victor received a message late one night. No subject, no greeting. You married the wrong person. He showed it to me without a word. Minutes later, another message followed. She planned everything, ask her. Bianca wasn't trying to come back. She was trying to fracture what remained. Victor stared at the screen for a long time. She wants me to doubt you. Yes, I said, because doubt is the only weapon she has left. He didn't reply to her, neither did I. But she didn't stop. Over the next few days, messages arrived through different channels. Old acquaintances, distant relatives, people Victor barely remembered, all repeating variations of the same idea. You were manipulated. She used you. You were collateral. Bianca was rewriting the story one last time, hoping something would stick. Victor finally spoke one night, voice steady but tired. Did you ever think about leaving me when you planned it? I met his eyes. No. Even knowing what would happen. Yes. That answer mattered more than any explanation. He nodded once, then she's wrong. The messages stopped after that. Zoe confirmed it quietly. She tried to involve others, no one responded. Bianca had miscalculated again. She assumed exposure would break trust. She didn't understand that trust built under pressure doesn't crack easily. A week later, Damien called. She's finished, he said. No funds, no allies, no legal room left. Good, I replied. She asked for a meeting, he added. I didn't hesitate, no. He exhaled, I expected that. That night, I slept without checking my phone. For the first time since the rehearsal dinner, nothing felt unfinished. Bianca had reached the end of every path she knew how to walk. And when someone who survives on reaction receives none, they don't explode. They disappear. Completely. I thought the story had ended. That was my mistake. 3 weeks of silence followed. No messages, no third-party attempts, no rumors. It was too clean, too final. Bianca had never exited quietly before. Then the call came. Not from her. From a journalist. I'm working on a retrospective piece, he said. About the Kara collapse, your name came up. I said nothing. There's talk of a private meeting, he continued carefully. A final exchange between you and Bianca. Some say it happened, some say it didn't. I smiled without humor. It didn't. He hesitated. She claims it will. The line went dead. That evening, Victor found an envelope taped to our door. No postage, no return address. Inside was a single card. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. You deserve the truth. I burned it. An hour later, Zoe called. Her voice was tense. She's back in the city. I know, I said. She's been asking questions about you, about Damien, about timing. She's late, I replied. She's desperate, Zoe corrected. At exactly 8 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring. Again. And again. Then it stopped. The next morning, Bianca's name surfaced one last time. Not in gossip. In a police report. She had been detained overnight after attempting to access restricted financial records using falsified documents. Nothing dramatic. No arrest. Just exposure. The kind that ends options. Victor read the report quietly. That's it, he said. Yes, I replied. That's it. Bianca had tried to force an ending, to reclaim control through confrontation. Instead, she'd revealed the one thing she could never hide. She still believed the story revolved around her. It didn't. It ended the moment no one showed up. The city forgot her faster than I expected. Not because her fall wasn't dramatic, but because something louder always followed. Another scandal, another name, another collapse. Bianca's last appearance barely registered before being buried under newer headlines. That was the final proof. Power doesn't end with destruction, it ends with replacement. Victor received confirmation a week later that his name had been formally removed from all remaining Kara-related inquiries. No footnotes, no lingering questions. Clean. You're free, I said. He nodded slowly. So are you. Nathaniel called once, just once. I should have seen it sooner, he said. I built something fragile and called it strong. I didn't argue. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't defend Bianca. He only acknowledged the truth and ended the call. That was his version of closure. Days later, I stood alone in my office after everyone had left. The city below was restless, unaware of how many empires had risen and fallen beneath its lights. Zoe sent a final update. She's gone, no forwarding trail, no recovery plan. I stared at the message, then locked my phone. There was nothing left to monitor. No threats, no tension, no unfinished business. Bianca had spent her life forcing reactions. Now she existed without one. And that was permanent. The silence didn't feel victorious. It felt complete. Some endings are loud. Others are absolute. Completion changes perspective. Weeks passed without interruption. No echoes from the past. No shadows trailing conversations. The tension that had once lived under my skin was gone, replaced by something sharper and clearer. One afternoon, a courier delivered a small sealed envelope addressed to me. No return name, no urgency marking. Inside was a single document. A finalized asset disposition report. Everything Bianca had fought for, everything she'd tried to reclaim, officially closed, permanently redistributed, no appeals remaining. At the bottom, one line was underlined. Case concluded, no further action required. I folded the paper carefully and placed it in a drawer I rarely opened. Not as a trophy, as proof that nothing remained unfinished. Victor noticed the change in me before I did. You're lighter, he said one night, not relieved, just settled. I stopped waiting, I replied. For what? For consequences, I said. They already arrived. Zoe invited us to dinner shortly after. Nothing formal, no agenda, just food and conversation that didn't revolve around strategy or survival. She won't resurface, Zoe said calmly. People like her don't rebuild without mirrors. Good, Victor replied. We're done watching. That night, as we walked home, I realized something quietly unsettling. If Bianca stood in front of me now, stripped of her name and leverage, I wouldn't feel satisfaction. I wouldn't feel anger. I wouldn't feel anything at all. That was the real ending. Not revenge. Not forgiveness. Detachment. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that closes doors without slamming them. The kind that leaves no reason to look back. One last thing remained. I opened my desk drawer the next morning and took out the photograph from the rehearsal dinner. Bianca mid-toast, the exact moment before collapse. I stared at it once more. Then I tore it in half. And threw it away. The ending didn't announce itself. It arrived quietly, disguised as normal. A year after the rehearsal dinner, Victor and I attended another elite event. Different venue, different families, same type of people. Power still wore the same expressions. Confidence still moved through the room unchecked. No one recognized me. That was intentional. I stood near the edge, glass in hand, watching conversations repeat patterns I now knew by instinct. Alliances forming. Smiles exchanged with calculation behind them. Someone laughed too loudly. Someone else pretended not to notice. At the center of the room, a woman raised her glass to speak. She was young, certain, untested. The room leaned toward her. I felt no urge to listen closely. Victor joined me, his voice low. "Funny," he said. "I used to think rooms like this mattered." "They still do," I replied, "just not to us." The toast ended, applause followed, deals resumed. Nothing collapsed. Nothing needed to. As we left, my phone vibrated once. A message from an unknown number. "I see you." I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I deleted it. Some threats don't deserve answers. Some voices fade only when ignored. Outside, the city moved forward without pause. Traffic, light, motion, unconcerned with past empires or fallen names. Bianca was somewhere out there. No stage, no audience, no leverage. And I wasn't watching anymore. That was the final twist. Not that she lost, but that she no longer mattered to the story at all. And neither did the humiliation that started it. The silence wasn't revenge. It was resolution. The story didn't end with her downfall. It ended with my exit. And that was enough. You have reached the end of the text.